There are people who don't need to speak up much, don't need to prove anything, yet still make others feel unsettled, not because they're aggressive or confrontational, but because they're simply too hard to control. They can't be led on easily, can't be pushed off the path they've chosen. And if you've ever known a true Capricorn, you'll know this isn't an exaggeration. It's something that repeats itself in many people born under this sign. Capricorns don't make loud protests, and they don't need to raise their voice to stand firm. Their silence alone can make others feel lost. They don't argue just to defend their beliefs, because they already know exactly where they stand. You can threaten, beg, or try to manipulate them in every way possible. Yet they'll keep walking, calm and certain, and that, more than anything else, is what leaves people feeling powerless. This video isn't meant to glorify Capricorns or turn them into superheroes. It's simply here to explain, clearly and deeply, why you can't control them. And if you're a Capricorn yourself, you might find pieces of your own story in each section, things you've carried in silence, understood in silence, and overcome in silence, without ever needing to say a word. We won't be counting from 1 to 12 in the usual list format. Because real Capricorns don't live by pre-made formulas. We'll be following the arc of their journey, from the unreadable masks they wear on the outside, all the way to the unshakable core that no one can reach or reshape. And if you stay with us through it all, you'll understand Capricorns don't need to be controlled, because they've always had a tighter grip on themselves than anyone else ever could. The first truth about why Capricorn cannot be controlled lies in this: you simply can't read them. If you've ever tried to understand a Capricorn, you'd know they're like a playing card that's never been turned face up. Looking at them, you might think they're fine, you might guess they're sad or assume they've accepted something. But in reality, no one really knows what they're truly thinking, and it's not easy to find out. They don't do this to act mysterious or keep up appearances. It's a form of self-defense, something they learned early on. Capricorn knows that if you let others see your weakness, you're more likely to get hurt, so they choose to hide. They keep a straight face, say just enough, avoid letting anyone notice they're offbeat. It's not that they don't feel pain, it's just they've learned it's safer to hurt in silence than be exposed. That's why when someone tries to reach Capricorn through emotion or words, it feels like hitting a wall. The more you push, the quieter they get. The more emotionally intense you become, the more they withdraw. No yelling, no dramatic reactions, but also no yielding. And when you can't read someone's real emotions, you have no leverage to control them. That's where the helplessness begins. And with Capricorn, that helplessness doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from a stillness you can't penetrate. The second reason why Capricorn cannot be controlled is because they don't need anything from you to keep moving forward. What makes people feel breathless when trying to get close to a Capricorn is this: they don't need to be praised. They don't need the spotlight. They don't need to be named. They don't live off compliments. They live by their own principles. In a world where everyone is eager for likes, shares, and admiration, Capricorn quietly works in the background. They can complete a project over 3 years without telling anyone, without posting a single update. And they don't care if anyone notices. You can't control someone if you have nothing to hold over them. Capricorn doesn't need your praise, your promises, or your approval. They only care whether you're doing the right thing, heading in the same direction, and being sincere and responsible. So anyone who thinks they can charm a Capricorn with sweet words or sway them through silent treatment is picking the wrong method. To them, words without action are just noise. They don't give in to smooth talkers. They respect those with substance. Capricorn doesn't live for applause, they live for inner strength. And that's exactly what makes them the kind of person you can't bribe, can't bargain with, can't lure in with attention. The third reason lies in this: before you even finish your plan, Capricorn already has 3 backup options. Capricorn never walks forward without knowing where they're heading. To them, everything needs a map. Invite them somewhere, they've already checked the route. Talk investment, they've done the research. Bring up emotions, they've prepared an exit in case things go off track. It might sound extreme, but that's how they live. They don't rely on luck. They don't hand their life over to randomness. They believe in preparation. The more thorough, the more peace of mind. They don't jump into anything unless they've measured the depth and calculated the risks. That's why when someone thinks they can guide Capricorn with spontaneous ideas or last-minute plans, they're already a step behind. Because Capricorn has long been steering their own ship, you can't lead someone who's already a step ahead. They're not swept away by momentum, not easily moved. They choose clarity to survive, not out of fear, but out of an understanding of what happens when you're unprepared. You can't convince someone if they've already envisioned every risk before you even find the words to start. The fourth reason why you can't hold on to a Capricorn is because they don't believe in words, only in results. Everyone has said things they didn't follow through on. Everyone has made promises they later forgot. But to Capricorn, a promise isn't just casual talk. It's like a spiritual contract. Once said, it must be done. Once committed, it must be upheld. They don't care how eloquently you speak or how grand your dreams sound. They only look at one thing: do you take action or not? And if you repeatedly talk without doing or keep stalling without concrete steps, they'll walk away. Quietly, without warning. No arguments needed, no tearful goodbyes. They simply step back, like an investor who once had hope but now sees no reason to stay. And once they've walked away, they don't return. To Capricorn, words have no value without action. They aren't easily swayed by emotions. They place their trust in what can be seen, touched, built. That's why you can't manipulate them with sweet talk. Your only chance lies in real effort, real proof, and the consistency to deliver on your commitments. The fifth reason lies in how they choose to manage emotions. Capricorn doesn't let the heart steer. They let logic decide the way. Some people make decisions with their heart. Some act on a moment of weakness. Some give in just because of a single message or the right hug at the right time. But Capricorn is different. They sit down, calmly assess everything like calculating a data sheet. Not because they're heartless or cold, but because they don't let emotions override clarity. To them, emotions deserve to be acknowledged, but not to be the sole decider. They honor feelings, but they don't let them take the wheel. You can cry, get angry, or stay silent all day. They'll listen. But if what you're asking for isn't logical, isn't stable, or has no clear future, they won't agree, not because they don't care, but because they care enough not to make a wrong move. And for that reason, emotional tactics, the kind meant to push just so you can pull, almost never work on them. Capricorn has a heart, but it's not the one driving. The brain holds the steering wheel. And if the road ahead isn't steady, they simply won't start the engine. The sixth reason, though it may sound simple, is incredibly hard to touch. Capricorn is born with the soul of a grown-up. From a young age, Capricorn already thought differently from others. While other kids fought over toys or got lost in cartoons, Capricorn would be asking their parents about savings, money, or how to plan for the future. It might sound overly mature, but for them, it was the most natural thing in the world. Capricorn isn't easily swayed by the crowd. When others chase after trends, they often stand aside, observing and thinking for themselves, not because they don't enjoy fun, but because they know life isn't just about fun. It also comes with responsibility and consequences. Even in primary school, they knew how to say no to things that didn't feel right. No one had to teach them. No trial and error required. It's the intuition of someone with a grown-up soul living in a child's body. And that maturity didn't come from books. It was something they were simply born with. So if anyone thinks they can pressure, manipulate, or peer pressure a Capricorn into compliance, they should know this is someone who's long been used to saying no to control. You can't lead someone who from the very beginning already knew how to walk their own path. The seventh reason they're untouchable is because Capricorn has learned to self-govern more strictly than anyone else ever could. To control someone, you usually need to find the part of them they can't control. But with Capricorn, that weak spot is almost non-existent. They're not impulsive. They don't act out of sudden emotion only to regret it later. They always manage themselves, even in their most vulnerable moments. Capricorn might get angry, but they don't lash out. They might feel sorrow, but still show up to work on time. They may hurt, but they don't let that pain become someone else's burden. The discipline you see in them wasn't imposed. It was forged from every fall, every loss, and every lesson they had to learn the hard way. That's why, even if you try to create chaos, push them to extremes, or pull them into emotional mind games, they won't react the way you hope. They won't pivot just because you do. They won't follow the script you wrote. They stay still, not because they don't see it, but because they've long practiced staying steady even when the world falls apart. Because the foundation within them wasn't built by others. It was something they constructed, repaired, and reinforced on their own. And no one can shake a person who's used to standing firm, even when everything around them collapses. The eighth reason: you can't trap someone who's already prepared for the worst-case scenario. Capricorn is not the kind of person who just figures it out along the way. They never live on hope alone. Before agreeing to anything, they've already mapped out the path, the exit route, and even the detour if necessary. On the surface, they may seem calm, but in their mind, there's always more than one plan. While you're still drafting Plan A, they already have Plan B. If things go off track, they've got Plan C in their back pocket. And if the risks run deeper, they've mentally rehearsed for the worst-case scenario, their personal Plan X. This preparation doesn't stem from fear. It comes from understanding how unpredictable life can be. That's why if anyone thinks they can trap a Capricorn, they should know one thing: Capricorn smelled the trap before it even had form. Before you take your first move, they've already predicted your next. They don't fall into reactive mode. Every step they take has been calculated long before. It might sound rigid, but in reality, this is how they survive in a chaotic world. Capricorn doesn't prepare because they're pessimistic. They prepare because they know life isn't always gentle. And if you live without a backup plan, you're the first to get swept away when things go wrong. The ninth reason emotions are the key to Capricorn is because they don't soften for changes that aren't real. Some people forgive the moment you cry, apologize, or promise to change, but Capricorn doesn't work that way. For them, emotions aren't a ticket back in. A promise holds no weight unless there's visible, actual change, and sadly, they've witnessed too many "I swear" moments meant just to pass the moment. Capricorn isn't cold. They're not heartless, but they are someone who has trusted the wrong people, waited in vain, and been hurt by those they once believed in. It's not that they've never softened. It's just that they've learned to fact-check reality before reopening the door. You could share a touching story, explain every reason you have, they'll listen, calmly, without interruption. But if reality hasn't shifted, if old patterns keep repeating, you'll see it clearly. Capricorn doesn't let the same play run twice. Not out of anger, but because they've learned that lesson. For Capricorn, each wound is a note in their internal ledger, not to hold grudges, but to remind themselves not to walk the same road that once brought them pain. They don't let emotions override their judgment, they let experience lead the way. And that's why, no matter how heartfelt the moment, you can't soften them with a tear if the truth they needed has already disappeared. Reason 10. Capricorn cannot be controlled because they stand firm in a silence that most people can't bear. There are moments when you're so angry you cry, just hoping the other person understands how hurt you are. Times when you break down, wishing someone would notice and comfort you. But with Capricorn, even if they're in pain, tired, or emotionally overwhelmed, it's hard to tell. They keep a calm face, a steady breath. They stay within limits others can't reach. It's not because they don't feel hurt. It's because they choose to hide it, not to expose it, not to speak it out loud. They know very well, once you show your vulnerability, people may pity you, or worse, use it to manipulate you. And Capricorn never gives anyone that chance. The more you try to pull them into emotional territory, the more they pull back. The harder you push, the quieter they become. Capricorn's poker face isn't a mask for deception, it's a shield they forged themselves, from the times they were hurt and no one stood by them. Those who've never known pain the way Capricorn has won't understand why they go silent, why they seem cold, why they refuse to let anyone touch their true feelings, but once you understand, you'll know. They're not unfeeling, they're just protecting themselves with silence, a kind of silence most people can't stand for more than 5 minutes. Reason 11. Capricorn can be loyal, but they're never loyal to what's no longer right. Many people confuse loyalty with blindness. They see Capricorn staying quiet, staying long in a difficult relationship, and assume they're weak. But the truth is, Capricorn stays because they still believe, still see value, still sense both sides are working in the same direction. They're loyal, but it's conditional loyalty. They stay if there's respect. They listen if there's truth. They remain if both parties are putting in effort. They're not naive enough to cling to something that's rotting just to say they tried. They're clear-eyed enough to recognize whether their patience is being appreciated or exploited. And once they realize they're being used, being taken for granted, they'll quietly leave. No loud announcements, no demand for fairness. They walk away, not needing anyone's understanding. Because for a Capricorn, leaving isn't about anger, it's about clarity. Seeing that this is no longer a place they should stay. You can't control someone who has already defined their limits. You can't force someone to stay when they know the relationship is being held together by one person and the other checked out long ago. And Capricorn? They won't wait to be pushed. They'll walk out while their heart is still whole. Final reason, and perhaps the one that makes them nearly impossible to hold on to, is that Capricorn doesn't chase trends. They quietly build their own empire. While others are still talking about what's hot, chasing what just became popular yesterday, Capricorn has already begun laying the foundation. No noise, no announcements. They quietly place each brick, plan each step, and measure every detail, not to be noticed, but to create something truly solid. Capricorn doesn't do things to prove anything to anyone. They let the results speak. They don't need frills, spotlights, or applause. They don't need the crowd's approval. To them, what has value is worth keeping. What isn't lasting isn't worth time. They don't waste energy on things that fade quickly. You won't find Capricorn in the trend race. They don't need to stand out in the crowd. They just need to stay true to their own path. While others shift every week to stay relevant, Capricorn sticks to their old route, only now it's stronger, deeper, and more solid than before. And that's the final reason. You can't control someone who doesn't need anyone else to define what success looks like, who doesn't seek to be good enough in others' eyes. They don't chase the spotlight. They build an empire, quietly, steadily, unshakably. If you're still here after 12 reasons, you've likely realized this. Capricorn isn't the kind of person who needs to be steered to stay on track. They don't wait for someone to pull them forward. They don't move because they're praised. They move with the power within themselves. They correct themselves when off course, pick themselves up after falling, learn the lesson without needing reminders. No pressure needed, no guidance required. They know what they're doing and what they need to avoid being swept away by what isn't truly theirs. That may be why so many try to hold on to them, try to understand them, try to control how they think or live. But it never works. Because for Capricorn, self-governance isn't taught, and it can't be taken away. They live in the way they believe is right, even if it means walking alone. And you can't control someone who never let themselves lose direction to begin with, who doesn't sway easily, who doesn't need validation to believe in themselves. Capricorn doesn't need to be held. They only need to be respected as they walk their path on their own 2 feet. If you're a Capricorn, you probably don't need anyone to remind you to stay strong, stay steady, and keep your pace, because that's how you've always lived. But if somewhere in this video you felt seen, felt truly understood, then maybe leave a small sign below, a symbol, a dot, a quiet nod to the universe. And if you're not a Capricorn but you've tried to understand someone like them, felt confused, felt powerless, felt admiration, then maybe this video is your starting point, a door to look deeper, not just into them, but maybe even into yourself. Because sometimes understanding another is the only way to realize what we've overlooked in us. If you want to keep hearing things like this, stories that aren't loud but real, follow the channel, so every time there's something new, you won't miss what needs to be heard. Not for anyone else, but for you.